This is End Time Insights, and I'm Steve Cochran. This is part 3 in a series of interviews that I've been conducting with a man who I'm adamant is a prophet, who was actually caught out of his body, up into heaven, to witness the end of America as we shall see in the not-too-distant future. If you want to know what's about to happen very soon to America, honestly, I wouldn't touch that dial. In the last show, which is where I want to pick up, the last show, we were discussing, I'm going to recap slightly, some of the things that you said you saw. You watched America begin to spiral. It was just, things were getting bad. There were shortages, there was a virus, a killer virus. This is not the virus that everybody's looking at, the coronavirus. This was a virus. You didn't know what it was, though. I mean, you saw no name or anything.
No.
You can say
no.
Corona number 2 or...
No, I just knew it was deadly and there was no solution for this one.
Shortages, gas, food, and as we started to discuss, electricity. There was grid failure, and I want to recap back onto that. You were, at one point, you were overseas and you were brought back, as we discussed. He saw frogs, demons jumping into people, folks. He's brought back to America, and his attention, I believe, is drawn towards, I don't want to say what, I don't put words into your mouth. You were looking at the West Coast, and it was black. California, at least California, and I'm curious. As I said before, so it wasn't a small little pockets of blackouts. California was black, and so it wasn't just one little area.
No, something cataclysmic, I know it happened because there was no power. I mean, it was just, I'm looking at a state, like if you're ever flown into Los Angeles, you're looking down on all the lights, thousands of lights. There were no lights. It was just, I'm looking across the country and I see darkness on the West Coast, top to bottom.
That's another question I was going to ask. So it wasn't just California. It looks like maybe went into Oregon and
I think so. I'm trying to see light. You have to understand you're suspended in the air. You're being allowed to see things. Sometimes it's like looking through a telescope.
Yeah.
Sometimes it's like looking through a lens when you're right up on something. And sometimes it's the ability to see for thousands of miles. I'm looking across the country. I see a light here and there, but I don't see any light when I see the West Coast top to bottom. Yeah.
Wow. So, as I would have to, if I was to take a step back and look, I would be thinking we're talking either a terrorist, and I know you didn't see causes, he didn't see causes. We're talking either maybe a terrorist attack or the landscape maybe changed that would cause such a massive. I mean, even if it was a terrorist attack, I would, like there's people that they say we can get hacked into the grid apparently, supposedly, and shut down I don't know. I know somebody shot up a generator one time and took out a portion. I'm just trying to figure out how do you take out top to bottom?
Well, I had a thought one time.
Unless it's landscape.
Yeah, I had a thought one time, and I can't say this was what I saw in the vision or it wasn't. What if part of California was gone? I had that thought one time.
Did you really? Because there's people, there has been credible people, including John Paul Jackson. And you mentioned to me at one point, William Branham.
Yeah.
Can you?
Yeah.
You said that, I just heard it once, I never heard the story before until you said it.
Well, Brother William Branham I read this some time ago, saw a tsunami, an earthquake. He was preaching in one of the major auditoriums in Los Angeles, and he prophesied, this would have been in the 50s. He said, where I'm standing one day, sharks will be swimming around. He said, I see sharks where my feet are at right now. And he said, I see a tidal wave, he said, reaching all the way across California to the state of Arizona and flooding the Salton Sea.
And that was when, I never heard that from.
Yeah, many years ago. I mean, probably 60, 70 years ago. Branham prophesied things that were otherworldly. You know.
Many people regard him as a prophet.
One of the most amazing.
Yes.
He was a seer. There's no question about it. I don't have an elevated thought of who I am or why God gave me this vision, because I know I was planning on quitting when he showed me what he showed me. I really had decided to throw my hands up and give up. I was frustrated and tired and probably a little broke back then.
I'd say, but he had a reason.
Yeah, I believe
He had a reason to show you. It wasn't just showing it to show you.
No.
It was meant for other people to hear.
I'm certain it was.
Yeah, he loves you, but
Yeah.
a message like this.
Yeah, I know many years ago there was a great woman of God named Gwen Shaw who had End Time Handmaidens, and she wanted to document my vision. I had spoken about it some in Ashland, Virginia, and she wanted to document it and put it in front of huge groups of people, and I started to write everything down and send it to her, and God said, no, don't do it. And I remember thinking, why wouldn't I want to do this? It's an opportunity to expose myself to so many people in the ministry, but it wasn't time. It didn't seem to me like it was time to share this vision really in any specific detail at all until 40 years later. You know, I mean, the hour we're in right now. A few years ago, when I started seeing all the things that I had witnessed in my vision starting to happen, for instance, this coronavirus, that's when I realized it's time to get this vision out.
Yes.
It's time to tell people about it.
I deem this critical, Danny. I deem this as a critical message. I deem it timely. This is something that the people and the church need to hear. In fact, America's not even ready. We're not even capable of fathoming where the man's going to take us. Because what you're going to hear in this show, folks, it gets pretty crazy. We're not ready. Now, I have a question, because I know there are people watching who they have their thoughts and their thinking, and some believe in pre-trib. I have a little question here. During this 3.5-hour experience, which I don't think we've even touched on yet, that has a prophetic meaning behind it.
Yeah.
Did you see at any point the rapture? I mean, you're watching in the spirit. You're getting to see frogs that are demons. So you're seeing in the spirit realm. You're also seeing in the physical realm.
Right.
Did you see the church get caught up at any point?
I did not see the rapture. There was a drastic shift in how I was seeing the vision at one point. And once that shift took place and everything went from color to black and white, it got horrible. Yeah. But I didn't, it's like I couldn't feel God's presence like I'd felt his presence before. It's like grace was being withdrawn or something. And so I tell people in the book, make your own decision on where you stand in the rapture, because I've never, I've read the book of Revelations a dozen times and I don't understand it like you do,
no,
Steve.
But you had
a
a unique experience, Danny.
Yeah, I did have a supernatural experience.
It lines up with Scripture. This really does. This fits in perfectly, which is why for 40 years I didn't know the 3.5 years meant anything. 3.5 hour vision meant anything. I had no idea why the Lord took my spirit out of my body for and why it was 3.5 hours.
Why exactly 3.5 hours?
What's that got to do with anything?
Yeah, why do I leave my body at 3 o'clock in the morning and go back in at 6:30? I didn't understand that for 40 years till I talked to you.
It is so, and I'll never forget when I was listening to that, and that was just one portion that I was listening to you preach and teach about this encounter. I'm going to call it an encounter. I was just saying in my spirit, yes. Amening is what I was doing. Yes, yes, yes. And the crazy thing about it, Danny, you didn't know it scripturally. I was listening to a preacher teach this. And through a portion of this that I remember you talking about, and you knew the church, at least in a portion of this, was there.
Right.
You knew the bride was there. It was there. And now we'll get into that, but it was funny to hear a pre-trib preacher, and you were adamant, preach it, but I heard this and I thought, what's this message you're giving me
Right.
here?
Yeah.
And you're preaching and you're adamant, and this isn't something you imagined or thought of, because no preacher is going to preach this.
Yep.
So I know people are asking, what did you see the rapture? It's got to be in the back of their mind.
If you saw that, I think in a vision, if you saw the catching away of the saints, you'd know you saw it.
Yeah.
And there was a shift in my vision that was pretty incredible, but I didn't see the rapture.
Yeah.
I didn't see it.
And that makes sense.
Yeah.
That makes sense, Danny. Other people are thinking, I described, did you by any chance see the two witnesses to where the two witnesses are, they're people that are stopping rain from falling during a 3.5 hour period.
Didn't run across them.
No fire coming out of anybody's mouth or anything.
I didn't see those things.
Did you happen to see, I'm just having to, because again, we have our thinking and our theses out there. Did you happen to see demons breeding with people?
No, I didn't. The things I saw,
which would be the Nephilim. I just wonder if you've seen. Supposedly the Nephilim are coming. You have an experience that's shocking.
Yeah.
And it's unique. And whether we know it scripturally or not, there's people out there, Danny, who are waiting for them. I know I'm not trying to put anything on you, but I mean, if you had seen demons breeding with people, you'd probably know it, right?
If you were to be able to go to Normandy, I think I shared this with you one time, and walk down the beach right after all of those men gave their lives, in liberation, fighting Hitler, see all of that chaos and the blood in the water. I saw that and more at a certain point in my vision. It was just such hopeless destruction and desperation, and such as humankind I don't think has ever seen.
You said it, described it in a couple different ways in what I've seen you say or read from you. The East Coast, you said it went into a type of drought, that it was dried up, and you also said it was scorched. Now, that's not any particular order. In fact, if I was to be the observer and trying to assume with what I saw, which is basically, you're just saying what you saw.
Right.
You don't know what caused the East Coast to go into drought. You don't know what caused the earth to be scorched. And yet I would think, if it was just me assuming, I would think the earth became scorched, and then obviously it's going to go into drought. There's nothing going to be there. Now, I don't want to put words in your mouth again, but can you tell me what?
I remember being turned toward the East Coast at one point in my vision. If you were to take a satellite photo of the United States, the whole eastern part of the United States is green. It's the greenest part of but when I looked out at the East Coast, it looked almost like the Mojave Desert. It was so brown and scorched. There was no life there.
And we're not talking a sun scorching. It looked burnt.
It's gone. It's gone. And very close to that time, I looked down upon Florida, and the huge, massive waves are crashing in Florida. It's snowing. It's snowing, and waves are crashing against Florida, and it's covered in darkness. Florida, it's like...
That makes no sense to anybody listening to you.
Right. You're from Colorado. I'm looking at Florida, and it's like I'm looking at Colorado. Just big, huge snowstorm and frozen water crashing into
Would you say
Florida.
Something maybe like, you discussed weather pattern changes, to where if it's snowing in Florida.
One thing I did see major changes in the cycles of nature, but I'm not even too sure what I saw wasn't man-induced. What I saw in Florida, it was like...
Almost like a nuclear winter.
I think it could have been. I've often thought it could have been a nuclear winter, because it wasn't Florida anymore. It wasn't the green state you go to get in the warm weather. It was gone. And the cycles during my vision, early part of my vision, it's like the very cycles of nature changed. I think I mentioned in my vision seeing the infestation of locusts that were devouring all of the crops in the breadbasket of America. And
I was going to ask you about that.
Yeah, they just kept coming out. There's just millions of locusts eating up. If there was any food to be had, the locusts were eating it.
The locusts are in the news right now. I should have probably looked this up ahead of time, but somebody was mentioning to me, I believe it's South Africa or something, that where locusts are they're just
eating everything. Yeah, that's what I saw in my vision. They were just
and
devouring.
so you get to see locusts, and this was
Yeah, people are starving, and then we got the breadbasket of America where we get so much of our food from.
Which no longer was.
There's no food there. The locusts are eating what's left, And
talk about a curse.
It's cursed.
Talk about judgment.
It felt like a curse. It did. I felt as though this country was cursed. There was a judgment on America at that point in my vision. And,
so you got weather pattern changes. You got Florida snowing.
Yeah.
I mean, and then you said somewhere that I think you mentioned something about flooding in certain areas.
Oh yeah, I would see cities that were flooded and just completely. I mean, if you ever watch the news, I'm seeing spots around America where the whole cycle of nature is so topsy-turvy and so upset that nothing's functioning as it should anymore. There's nothing in nature that's running on a schedule anymore. Yeah.
So the weather is all screwed up.
All screwed up.
Yeah. At one point, so we're still looking. Let's just say I'm going to keep you on the East Coast. You said at one point you saw, I believe you described it as a crater in one city. There was a particular city somehow. You're looking at this crater. I don't know what happened to the surrounding buildings, but I got to assume if the crater's there, where are the surrounding? What did you see?
I'm in the air. I'm in the air, and I'm hovering over an area that I knew had once been heavily populated by perhaps millions of people. And there's nothing but a crater and scorched earth. I'm not talking about like grass being burned. I'm talking about a crater where everything's been vaporized. I knew, it's as though I knew that there's nothing in this area. There are no bodies left. Yeah. Everything's been vaporized. There's no life there. There's no life.
That's insane.
Yeah, there's just a sense that a lot of people have died. Yeah.
And this was a city. Was that?
I think it had to have been. It had to have been. It had been a city at one time, but it was just a, a big crater.
I never quite thought about that.
Just went on as far as I could see a crater, and the trees are gone. There, everything's gone. It's just burned. It's just burned, vaporized earth. That I do remember seeing very clearly.
You talk about at one part to where you're looking at another city. Again, we're still talking on the East Coast. To where you're looking at the skyline of this city, whatever the city is, and I don't want to. I'm not trying to sidestep the cities, what these cities are, but I don't know that you know what the cities are. You're just kind of being taken. And I know that we're going back about 40 years when this happens. So I don't know how you're doing it.
Well,
remembering even this much.
Some things leave an imprint in your mind, and I'm looking at a major city. This is at the point in my vision where things are no longer in color; they're black and white.
Is that where we're at here?
Yeah,
okay.
we're there.
All right,
and I'm looking at what I know had once been a major city, and all I see is rubble. And I see metal. I'm looking at a skyline. The sky behind is ominous, black and white. There's clouds and darkness in the air. But I see metal that is in skyscrapers that has been melded and is bending over. Where I don't see rubble, I see what used to be the shell of a skyscraper.
And it's bent over from the top. They're bent over.
It's bent over. It's in that skyline I'm looking at. A lot of it's just completely gone, but then other things are melted. I mean, it's actually the metal's melted and bending like a tree would bend.
I don't want to. I know you didn't see causes, and I don't want to put words into your mouth or.
Yeah, I decided early on it. I'll share what I saw. I'm not going to embellish it. Just say what I saw and let everybody figure it out for yourself.
That certainly sounds like to me, from above, you got a nuke going off. The
buildings were bent.
If they're going like this,
yeah,
and the place is melted.
Yeah. The place is.
Nobody's alive.
Nobody's alive. I'm looking at just shells and rubble and bent metal from what used to be a huge skyscraper.
And we're worried about the coronavirus.
Yeah, people are worried about buying toilet paper.
I think we're focusing in on the wrong thing. I see this. We're not paying attention to where we're going, and we're all worried about these minor things. And yet America, again, I keep saying, America's not ready for this.
No, I don't believe so either.
The church isn't even ready for this.
No,
Dan.
I don't believe the church is ready at all for what
Nothing
lies
like
ahead.
this.
No,
This doesn't make any sense to
No.
most, and yet this is what you saw.
Yeah, it's what I saw, and it impacted. Well, it tried to change the whole course of my ministry, because I would be the first to say, a 23-year-old evangelist, full of ego and thinking, you know, I had it all figured out, and then to decide to quit. And I almost think God was really showing me I didn't amount to all that much. I needed to get back on track, you know.
Well, this is important.
Yeah.
This is very, very important, and as long as you weren't imagining anything.
No, I didn't imagine. I know I did not imagine. You know,
I know that.
What I saw. Yeah.
Yeah. You mentioned which is a part of this discussion that you saw at some point. So you've been witnessing things in color. It's color, and then all of a sudden your encounter changes from color and goes over to
Bang! It goes black and white.
to black and white.
Yeah. And when
Go
that
ahead.
changed, let me tell you, Steve, the whole sense of what I was seeing changed. It up until that point, I felt hope. In other words,
Really?
Yeah, I could
You
see.
felt hope with
I
this?
could, right, I could
Because
see
God
with all
can
these
somehow-
things. Yeah, God could bring America
that's
out
good.
of it.
It's good to know. I didn't.
Yeah, I mean, there was a sense of hope. God could bring the country out of it. People could fall on their knees and start crying out to God. You know, this could happen, that could happen. But once that vision changed gears and went black and white, I knew it was nothing but pure judgment hitting this country, and there was no hope. I felt nothing but desperation at that point.
Really?
Yeah, it was a
feeling of
a sense of total death and destruction and desperation. That's all it felt like. From the moment that vision changed, I knew I was seeing the beginning of the end. In other words, it wasn't.
Well, this don't sound like the this
it's
is the beginning
final
of the end.
chapter.
Yeah,
I'm seeing the final chapter there. You know, and
I can't even imagine. I mean,
Yeah.
and what you had to have felt like.
no, it was you know, well, just to put it this way, when Jesus put my spirit back in my body at 6:30 in the morning, I laid in that little bed in that apartment and I sobbed for 3 hours, because I felt like I felt like a rebuke to me for where I was at in my own heart. That's one thing it felt like, and it felt like I did not understand my own purpose in being an evangelist. You know, and it was finally becoming apparently clear to me that we have to work while it's yet day.
Yes.
Because the night's coming.
And you're here to warn. You're here to minister.
Right.
And this certainly has a message behind it. I wanna read something it's another quote that you sent to me. You said, there seemed to be a sense of unrestrained evil. I'm going to assume, we're not going to elaborate too much, but because we've only got about a minute left. So we're going to have to carry this over, folks, I'm going to tell you about. But there are more questions I have. There seemed to be a sense of unrestrained evil. Death and destruction blanketed America. Blanketed America.
Right.
A sense of iron-fisted hopelessness. The skies darken, elements fail, no security. That's something that Americans have. I felt like I was witnessing the end of a nation, pain and destruction everywhere.
Right.
So you saw death and destruction basically blanketing America.
Coast to coast.
And you came back, was it 6:30 in the morning when because we don't really have time to talk, but you came back at 6:30 in the morning and entered your body, and so your encounter lasted 3.5 hours.
Yes.
Okay. Folks, we have more questions, but I'm going to be doing what's called a behind the scenes, and you're going to want to get it. I got more to tell you. Thank you, Pastor Danny Davis, for coming here and sharing us your heart. Stick around, I got more to tell. What did Danny say? He said, death and destruction. This is what he said. This was a part of the quote. Death and destruction blanketed America. blanketed America. Death and destruction blanketing America, folks. We can't even fathom that. Oh, there's some people who may be encouraging it these days, but not where we're headed. In fact, let me tell you something. Remember, he's coast to coast. Listen to me. In that quotation, do you know I stopped reading it? And I know some of you are not going to understand why I had to stop reading, so I'm going to explain just a little bit. And if it doesn't make sense, I'm sorry. Folks, there is what's considered to be acceptable Christian programming. And there are limits on how far. I had a discussion with one of the networks. I didn't talk to the other two. We're on several, folks. On how far can I take this? How far can I discuss things with the man without going past these limits? And out of respect to everybody, including the other networks that we're on who I didn't discuss this with, I just realized I'm not going to take it past these limits out of respect for everybody, including you, the viewer. So I stopped quoting what the man said. Again, it's too far gone in our minds to be able to wrap our heads around this. Now, this is the final show for television that we will do. However, there is what's called a behind the scenes that you can get on DVD. It's an entirely extra show where we go past the limits without worrying about offending anybody or just thinking how brutal this becomes. You can get it. You can get the behind the scenes. Here's what you can do. You can call in or go to the website and get the vision. You'll also get a DVD with 3 shows that you've seen on television, including the behind the scenes, which takes it farther than we're willing to go on television. Again, folks, that's just appropriate. Understand, okay? Just be appreciative of this. And for those of you that are complaining, why don't we hear the rest? You've had 3/4 of the book already. Just so you know this, you've already got 3/4 of the book. But the behind the scenes will take it even farther than the book. So if you don't want it, you don't have to get it. Be happy that you've heard 3/4 of what the man saw. Or you can get the book, have it in your library. The 3 shows on DVD, including the behind the scenes. And what we do in the behind the scenes, we wrap everything up. And you get to hear how the encounter ended. Go to the website or call in. Look for more to come. Until next time, take care and God bless.